Hello and welcome to week 38 of the FUT Weekly podcast. This is a content pod and I've got with me, as I so often do, FUT legend AirJapes. Welcome back.
Thank you much, Ben. Happy to be back as we're, I guess, inching very close towards end of team of the season, which feels like it's been going on for freaking ever this time.
I mean, it kind of is a long time, isn't it? I mean, it's a good portion of the cycle that is team of the season. We also have with us, as we pretty much always do on these content podcasts, JoshXLs. Welcome back to the pod.
Yes, thank you for having me. The magic of the cup is a lie, unfortunately. So,
I mean, it almost wasn't actually, in fairness. I feel like...
Yeah, if United have won, then the magic would have been restored. But as it is...
I mean, it was a lot closer than I had imagined, which was nice.
It was a lot closer than I imagined after 13 seconds.
Well, yeah, that too as well.
I wouldn't have predicted a 1-goal winning margin at that point.
And the one thing about that is it's probably given me a false sense of optimism that maybe Inter might be able to prevent a treble, but I think that hope is a fool's hope. But we can move on and introduce our final guest, who is someone who's been on not so long ago, actually, just before team of the season. It is Nepenthez. He's here.
Hello, what's up, guys?
Nice. I like the way you've rehashed your introduction there. And actually, talking of rehashing, team of the season maybe feeling a little bit like that at this point, but
yeah, team of the season's lost its allure. We were going through Josh and I, JoshXLs and I, not JoshXLs, JoshXLs.
Oh, I was maybe taking the name too literally, was I?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the idea is XLs, but whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, I was just reading the letters, to be honest, but
which is an Excel file.
Yeah, which is an Excel file. Wait, that's the spreadsheet thing, right? Yeah.
I mean, the only real funny part here is that Josh could have corrected you one way or another, like many, many moons ago. At this point,
I was just letting him.
He's just let it go.
Yeah.
You know, Ben, that the spreadsheet's called Excel, though, right? Like EXCL.
Well, that is true.
Yeah, not XL as in letters, which is where it then becomes XLs rather than XLS.
It sounds like a lot more thought went into the name than you gave him credit for.
I never pictured myself a decade ago having Japes and Nepenthez defending my handle on a podcast. That was just not where I saw my life in 10 years' time.
I'm glad we did this. It's an important intervention. So thanks to Josh and Net for doing it. Let's crack on with what we're here to talk about. Yeah, team of the season maybe lost its shine a bit. Go on, because I think you're mid.
Yeah, Josh and I were making a video about like the best promos in FIFA ever. And as the years went on, like if you look at like how many promos were in 17 or 18 or 19, and then they started getting more and they became longer, and it's like people used to look at like FUTmas, team of the year, team of the season, and then maybe like a summer heat, and that was like maybe FUT birthday in there as well. But there was like 4 or 5 core promos, and so you would just massively look forwards to team of the season because it was a change of the power curve, and the cost of the cards was always reasonable. But now it's like 95% of the team of the season cards are as good as or worse than cards that we've had in the game for literally months. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, because it was such a huge leap in the power curve previously, right? I mean,
yeah.
And now that isn't so much the case. Yeah, it is a good point. We'll talk more about that at the end, actually. And there's something that I wanted to speak about in terms of like the variation of the content, because we've had like a draft focus this week. So maybe that's something we can discuss a bit more broadly at the end as well. But just to get into the actual content we've had, because although, it gets a bit repetitive at this point, I guess for those very interested in Serie A, we should definitely cover it as we normally do. So we'll do that first of all and start with pound for pound powerhouse. And I guess, it is a good week for that. And we've got a good guest nomination here who's actually not a Serie A team of the season. And T-Man goes for Showdown Paqueta, or Paqueta, I should say. He's like half the price of one go at a gamble pack, and usually plays way above his stats. He's already a superstar, but imagine the upgrade as well. Remember, he's 5-star, 4-star on a high, strong left-footed midfielder. He's always going to be insane. And 𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀 comes in and says, second the above, 12 goals, 6 assists in weekend league from left centre mid in a false 9. Powerful runner going forward, great finishing, and the skills in midfield is always useful. Will be top tier for a low cost if he gets an upgrade. And I'm not sure the same can be said for 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦, who I don't think is going to get a pound for pound nomination. Although I guess he'll get some use maybe in the Serie A Cup for people with plenty of fodder. We can get onto the other showdown a bit later, but for now we'll whip around and do the other pound for pound nominations. So is there anyone yourself, Nep, who's been released over the past week or so who you think pretty good value?
Well, I think all of the Liga NOS Portuguese guys really, apart from 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦, who's a bit expensive, but specifically Taremi, lengthy, 6'1", 4-star, 4-star. He only lacks the outside the foot shot trait. Other than that, he's like end game striker for like 40k.
I loved him last year, and so I saw that, and I was like, can't wait to get him in like a pick or something like that, because they're giving him out like candy.
Yeah.
And if I have to buy him, it's not the end of the world.
Lengthy with a hawk and basically max pace as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's got default 99 positioning, and the default like positioning stat goes a long way.
Yeah, nice to see the return of a pod legend. And Josh, who have you got for us?
I'm going to call back to, I think it was an early 𝗲𝗍𝑝s pound for pound, and it might have been the inform at the time, but it's Mike Smalling, Chris Smalling, Mike Smalling, depending if you're Louis van Gaal or not. And he's got like a 94 rated team of the season, which felt insanely high in terms of the boost he's been given. I mean, especially when you compare it to, I don't want to go back to it, but like some of the Premier League tots, like his card is just unbelievable. He's got 96 sprint speed, is lengthy regardless of what you give him, because he's only got that 70 agility and he's got 99 strength, and just has like lights out defending in that kind of central centre backs slot, because everyone's using those 3 centre backs now. He just wins everything in the air. He's like, his passing's maybe his only slight weak point, but he's 90k. And you could slap whatever you want. If you feel like you need that extra acceleration, then, go all out and put a shadow on him or whatever it is that you want. Catalyst is actually what I've been running him with, because I like to have that passing up a little bit. And yeah, he's a lot of fun to use. And he seems to just have that kind of, he hasn't got a unique body type, but Chris Smalling's just always been a beast. And I can't really put my finger on exactly why. He's just got that build that he bullies people off the ball.
I used him in the TOTS Cup, and it was a relief having him because of Tammy Abraham appearing constantly. 𝗲𝗍𝑝s, let's come to you then. Who have you got for us?
Well, I was going to do Taremi.
Sorry about that.
But that ship has sailed. And also, I actually did the Paqueta SBC, and he's doo-doo. So I'm not going to... Sorry, listeners. Not today.
So what about him is bad, apart from the fact that, he might be your nomination?
His quickness and on-ball seeming like ability is not at the level, like he's still behind. I'm hoping if he gets the boost, I think it's probably his reactions, Ben, is like under 90 still, which is a problem.
Yeah. I mean, agility and balance as well on that high 80s.
Yeah,
low 80s.
He just didn't have the sauce that I was hoping he would. But I have so many Brazilian players that I've gotten untradeable for team of the season. I decided I'll do this one. It's just another, well, not so many. I have a lot of Brazilian Premier League players. So I thought if I ever want to make a, little yoga team down the road, he might be a player that I'd want to have, but he's not that good. So I don't know. I guess that makes me sad.
He reminded me a bit of Zidane in that, what I was expecting versus what I got was, he, like you say, he just doesn't have that source. Maybe if they win and he gets the +2, it might just give him that little boost. But yeah.
I feel like we're grasping and hoping. You know what I mean? It's maybe if he does it, but it also feels kind of unlikely. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Also, Montiel's upgrade last showdown wasn't particularly huge or significant. So, yeah, it's tricky. I was actually going to say, I should push you for your actual pound for pound.
Obviously, I'm going to go out and pick @PhilFoden for 600k. It seems reasonably priced.
I mean, some City fans seem to think so. I'm pretty much all doing it, I think.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I very genuinely believe, and I doubt that I'm the only one, that City will win. But I don't know why he doesn't have 5-star skills at least. It just feels really, really odd. So there's tons of players from Serie A. If we're going to pick a player from the Liga Portuguesa, I think João Mario is really interesting. he does only have the 88 reactions as well, but he's like so well-rounded in so many stats. And if I'm looking at this card, honestly, I think if you're playing a 3-back system and you want a player that's kind of spicy out wide in a different way, you toss Catalyst on him and he gets really, really interesting because he has base 91 interceptions and 91 standing tackle. And so you can do some damage with him. He has base 97 positioning and 99 shot power. So like he's going to end up in all the right spots going forward. If you're playing a 5-back or 3-back system, putting him out wide, he can obviously do a job in the middle too, but I think he'll be underutilized playing out wide in that setup. And he's $30K.
Yeah, so cheap. And the player I'm going to go for, he's a bit more expensive, but I just think if you look at his stats, I don't know, it's a funny one, isn't it? I think it's because he's 4-star. That's why he's not as expensive as he probably might be. But Lautaro Martinez for 550K, if you look at him with basic, it basically feels like every stat is, if not 99, like just off 99, that is actually relevant for a striker.
He's always been horrible in game for me because of his body type.
Yeah, I think that and maybe the lack of a 5-star in there is the reason he's not particularly expensive. I mean, he's 500K, but...
Yeah, but it's an over-the-years thing. Like, playing with him in the previous years, I've hated him, and so I just have that kind of like preconceived notion that he's going to be bad, and so I just never look at him.
In fairness, the 95 composure, I think, could make a bit of a difference, because in past cycles, he's not had the highest composure, I think, so maybe he'll feel different. I haven't used him, though, so I can't be sure. And I'm not going to nominate him just because he's kind of expensive, and I think I've got a better option. I know, Josh, you also went for a Serie A centre-back, but I've been keeping my eye on lengthy centre-backs with high acceleration, and really above 87, I think it is, acceleration, you've just got Ramos at 90 acceleration. That's basically it. Until we got Bremmer, who is team of the season, of course, and is 89 acceleration, but has way higher sprint speed than Ramos. And I think the reason why Ramos has been so effective is, yes, he's unique in many ways, as we know, but he has, as I've said before, that high acceleration and he's lengthy. His letdown is over a slightly longer distance because he doesn't have the sprint speed, but Bremmer does. And he's got maxed out defensive stats with a shadow. He's got 94 strength and aggression and jumping, 95 reactions, 90 composure. And he's not amazing on the ball, but even with the high attacking medium defensive work rate, didn't find it too much of an issue. And alongside Marquinhos, who's a positional god, he played really well. So yeah, impressed.
On that Lautaro Martinez, I used him in a draft today, and he was very good, and I have exactly the same experience as everyone else of like his body type, or just something about him made him feel clunky and not very good. But he was like lethal today, quick, could push people off the ball, and for somebody who's only 5'9", was winning almost every header that I was asking him to win. Like, I must have scored 4 headers from corners. He was just an absolute beast. So maybe that's just because the quality of opponent in draft is maybe not as high as it usually is. But, you know, he might be worth giving a try out, because if he plays to his stats, 500K is an absolute bargain.
What was I going to say? I had one card of his last year that I liked. Like, I would say go as far as saying, like, very much enjoyed using. And, like, I'm definitely keeping an eye. He's the type of card that I'm hoping to get in red picks. Feels like you could get him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus, you know, I don't know, one of the truly big name guys that, like a Leao or something. Like, I don't think I'm getting Leao. Though I just played against a red Kylian Mbappe, which is super annoying.
Yeah.
Who gets that? So I don't know. I hope I get him. If I do, he totally feels like the type of card that you would, like, I would try to fit into a squad just to give a run for fun. I think he probably excels in a 2-striker set. He always has. Yeah. But I don't think he works very well in 1-striker formations.
I got a nice link to him actually in Barella as one of my red picks. I've not used him that much. He seemed good, but Tonali was pretty instantly impressive actually, and potential pound for pound nomination. I mean, there are just a lot in this team, to be honest.
There's a lot of decent... I don't think there's bad players, really. You know, Strafezza's kind of average, but you can make him kind of be okay. Even somebody like Di Lorenzo down at 45K is an outrageous fullback. And maybe it's just the 3-star that brings his price down, but then you ask why that doesn't affect Theo Hernandez on the other side as much. There's Strafet's at 26k, Di Lorenzo and 𝘱𝑒zny around that 40k mark, but then everything else is 80k plus. You know, we've often talked about there being a massive gap between the most expensive and the lowest, and then there's this good middle band. This feels like a really like spread out team of the season where there's kind of cards at every price range. There's loads in that kind of 100 to 1 million price range. Then you've got those big expensive cards in Osimhen and 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦 and Leao. And then you've got like Rabiot and Dybala if you want that next rung down. You've got Barella if you want to try him at 500,000. Like there's a really, really good mix. And I kind of feel like every team of the season has progressively got better. I felt like when you saw the new team, you were like, oh, that's new, or that's a better player than we had in this, you know, the midfield of Bundesliga, for example, just blew Premier League out the water as far as I was concerned. And then La Liga just had this great array of players. I like what they've done with it. I think it's just not a sexy league, so people aren't as excited.
What is that Rabiot card though?
Yeah, he's insane, isn't he?
Also, what is the sporting guy's name again? Gonzalo.
Oh, you mean Pedro Gonçalves, Sporting? Yeah.
Yeah, his stats are insane.
Yeah.
99 composure. Right.
Yeah, he's better than most major league wingers and strikers.
Yeah.
Have you used him?
No, I haven't. No. Well, I mean, he always gets a good card every year when he gets a TOTS, though. So it was no surprise that he was another.
But like this good?
I think not in terms of the actual stats, but overall rating wise, yeah, he's had a few similar ones. Actually, Nep, I was going to ask you quickly to wrap up content at the moment. Have you given any of these Serie A players a go?
I had Osimhen in draft. He was really, really good. I had Smalling. He was really, really good. And yeah, I've used like a handful of them, but only in draft. And as Josh says, you know, like draft isn't exactly most competitive it's ever been right now. But in terms of, I mean, I haven't played Rivals in months, and Champs I gave up after 3 weeks of playing Team of the Season Champs because the red picks are just not worth the stress and the hassle.
It's interesting because actually the value of the red picks I've had has been fairly high. I mean, they've been nothing exceptional, but it adds up if you get someone fairly decent, right? And don't get me wrong, I'd be doing this anyway because I've got an unhealthy obsession with red picks, to be honest.
Yeah, so do I.
And I do enjoy the competition that is Champs in terms of the variation of opponent and things like that. But I think it is notable that there really aren't many red pick attackers around. Like, yeah, you do see some in opponents' teams here and there, but I've really not seen that many, and maybe even less than past cycles. And it kind of makes me think, like, all I've been doing is really shuffling around midfielders and defenders each week to get the new untradables I've got in. And yeah, I'm changing the team, but I wouldn't say I'm committing to the grinds to get players who help for Chem and that sort of thing. And I also think for maybe less experienced players, I don't really feel like it's going to be something that they're persuaded to change their team for. I mean, we spoke to Chris, of course, new player to FUT the other week, and he got that Mane, and he was actually genuinely thinking of completely changing his approach to FUT and starting to branch out beyond Premier League because of the Mane. And there must be a lot of players who have that experience if there were these really top tier players that they could get through red picks or just untradable rewards. And I don't know, I kind of feel like maybe they are missing a trick by not going for it and giving people more enticing rewards, especially in an attacking sense where you might end up rebuilding. I don't know whether you think that that would actually help in terms of engagement around Team of the Season, but certainly for something like Serie A, I feel like it would help people get engaged.
Yeah, I mean, EA have mastered the art of forcing engagement in this game, haven't they? You know, everything's timed and limited, and the fear of missing out is wild. So I don't think that they need another thing to kind of like make people engaged. My thought process always comes back around to who cares? Like, who cares if everyone has got a red Osimhen and a red 𝘵𝑪𝑎DONNA? Because they're still going to be running their player of the month 𝘵𝑚Bappé, their icons that they've got. Like, it's just not going to actually make a difference. Like, if you gave everybody access to every card in the game, you would still mostly see the same teams.
Yeah, that's fair, especially since 𝘵𝑚Bappé gets so cheap. But do you think that there's also an approach from them which is like, well, actually, we've done well to engage people over the summer. If we give people the opportunity to get really, really high caliber attacking players and people build their ultimate team too quickly, which is always their concern, that maybe that will detract from what they've got planned in the summer, when we will see that next step to the power curve, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, last year, obviously, Shapeshifters, we saw like the 99 𝘵𝘵 and the absolutely insane cards. And it will be about the same sort of time because obviously Shapeshifters has kind of been leaked or whatever.
Yeah.
And so after, it'll be middle of June that we'll get Shapeshifters again. And yeah, this will be silly season, right? This is when 99s start coming out left, right, and center. And even if you look at like the number of extremely high rated cards, the things that matter within those, work rates, skill moves, things like that. Like every year, there's just more and more and more. So I'd expect this year's Shapeshifters to have like at least a handful of 99 5 stars. And at that point, again, it's like it makes these team of the season cards a little bit obsolete because if the power curve is about to jump, then these are going to be worthless, especially considering how much people have already. Which again takes me back to like, who would care if like 𝘵𝘂𝘳𝘀𝘀 was extremely common in red picks? Who would actually care? Who's coming up against a red 𝘵𝘂𝘀𝘀 and thinking that their gaming experience is ruined? It's just no one, is it? So yeah, I don't know. I think
yeah, they could be more generous. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then going back to what you said about engagement, I think it probably would give more engagement because I would play champs if I thought I had a genuine chance of hitting the biggest players.
Yeah, and I might actually also just, you don't even need to make them more common. Just like you could also just give more picks out, right? Give people more roles.
Yeah. We were talking about just letting people play champs again. Like, does it matter if people go in and play another 20 games of champs? And maybe what you do is have the first time you play champs be only against people who are playing champs for the first time, and then everyone who wants to play it again can go into this like now unlocked secondary champs
plus.
Yeah,
having a repeatable playable game mode that gives you immediate rewards that's not draft would offer so much replayability to this game. And it might still get to that point where it's like, well, what am I even playing for? Who cares? But at the same time, people are then able to like gamify it themselves and be like, right, I'm just going to keep playing Serie A FUT champs until I've got all of the reds. And that, like, now you can start creating your own like mini games and side games, your own like path to power. You know what I mean?
On this, actually, I would love a red 𝘭𝘪𝘀𝗀𝘐, but there's basically just no way. Like, you can get them through rivals, I guess, because if you're in Elite Division, I'll get 5 red picks on Thursday. The chance of him being in that is just so slim, though, because it's such a big pool. That would be really nice, maybe for playoffs, and that would incentivize people to go into playoffs who aren't necessarily going to go into champs, which I think is something they try and encourage people to do, but doesn't always happen.
Playoffs gives you a minor league red pick, and champs gives you the major league red pick. Yeah,
I think that'd be good. Anyway, we should probably take a break. It's that kind of time, and then we'll be back to talk about draft improvements, the market, and plenty more. Hello, listener. I thought in this break I'd see whether I can interest you in this week's gameplay episode. You can find that, and of course, that 36,000 FIFA point giveaway over on the Patreon. The Patreon keeps the podcast going, and it makes FUT Weekly possible, makes it weekly. It wasn't, for a time, able to be weekly, so it's amazing to be able to do that. If you'd like to support and get those bonus episodes and enter the giveaway, it's just £3 a month. You can head over and enter that giveaway directly by going to bit.ly/23 TOTS, all lowercase, or you can follow the link in the description of this podcast, or just search support FUT Weekly. A huge thank you for considering it if you do, and if you're a current supporter, a huge thank you for supporting. And let's get back into the podcast. Hello and welcome back after the break. The market is what we'll talk about first, and it's been pretty stable over Team of the Season, at least to some extent, despite all the shiny new options coming on in the last few weeks. But I guess that eventually has had an impact because Neymar, for example, dropped from 7 to 6 million. And the reason for that, well, I'm guessing it's because I bought him at 7 million. But it is one of those things that tends to happen around this point. People get cautious about what might come after Team of the Season, about Ultimate Team of the Season, and there's just a lot of good players out there, Josh. I'm assuming most things go down and people should just enjoy trying new players.
Yes. Like, what I would say is everything now, if you're investing coins into something, invest it into a player that you do not care what their price is, you won't sell them. Yeah. Like, if you're worried about your coins, hold on to them, because what they'll be able to buy you in 3 weeks' time is going to be way more than what they can buy you today. Like the promo, the first team that comes after Team of the Season, go and check last year. Go and check that Shapeshifters team that came after Team of the Season and tell me that the coins you invest now are going to be worthwhile in literally 2.5 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Like at this point in the game, it's silly season because you kind of just need to stop caring about your coin total. The worst thing you could do is hold your coins because you don't want to lose them, and then get to August, September, when we start gearing up to EAFC and going, I've got 10 million coins and I didn't do anything with them. Yeah. For those of you that have 10 million coins, or even if it's 1 million coins, enjoy them. Enjoy it.
And also why you're still invested in the game from a vaguely competitive standpoint. If you want to play during Ultimate TOTS Champs weekends and stuff, it's nice to use those players in those matches.
Yeah, I think once 𝘵𝗵𝗃𝗍𝘂 comes, these team of the seasons, even players like 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦 and 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦 and stuff, they're just going to look terrible in comparison. And so why would you not want to be like, well, let me get 2 million coins for him and do something better? But we're also only about 4 to 6 weeks away from repeat weight 5x10s and that kind of content. And that is when you can see, like you see it last year, like 𝘵𝐶𝗰𝗍𝘂𝘃 𝘵𝗵𝗃𝗍 was like 4 million coins. And then literally like a day later is like 600,000 coins. It's like, yeah, once you get there, like we're at that stage of the game where, like Josh says, just like coins don't matter. The team you use doesn't matter. The players you have don't matter. Just build a team that you like. Like 𝗵𝗪𝗍𝗪 is playing with 𝗦𝘠nathAn David on 1 chem point because he just wants to use 𝗦𝘠nathAn David. I assume maybe it's the red version or whatever. Just get your favorite 11 players. And I promise you will still finish on the same number of wins that you always finish on.
Yeah. I mean, also, even if you don't, it doesn't matter hugely. The rewards you get, as everyone knows, it's so random anyway. And yeah, enjoy yourself. Try players that you want to try and use players you want to use. That's the summary there, I think. Talking of something which doesn't often let you use the players you want to use or try the players you want to try or even use the formation you'd quite like to use is draft. And it's a focus because of an objective that's come out, which does provide some extra fairly all right rewards for playing it. So, Nep, it's been the focus of your content for quite a while, actually, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to know, just before we discuss maybe improvements to it, because it needs some, any tips you might have for people possibly even drafting for the first time.
Yeah. Don't worry about chemistry.
Yep.
Just pick the best 11 players.
Yeah, it's good advice. Do you think there are certain positions which you think is maybe worth trying if you can? Like centre back is an area I always think you're at a pace disadvantage otherwise.
Like if you just built, even from a draft, if you just picked like the players you like the most and built the team you like the most likely you'll have like 10, 15, 20 chemistry anyway. So you'll still get the boosts here and there. If you do want to focus like one particular player's chemistry, specifically centre backs, then sure, why not? But it's like it gets to that point where it's like if your centre back has got, I don't know, like a finisher chem style on him, which happens way more than it should.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if you get 3 chemistry on him. You're not boosting any key stats anyway.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like the chemistry style can just mean there's no point in getting chemistry anyway.
Yeah,
regardless. So yeah, makes sense. I did notice actually. I don't know do you change your like play style at all in draft? Because I found that because I'm used to having really fast centre backs and at least having relatively similar pace to the attacking players, and even if they're still slightly behind, I hadn't played draft for a while. I just kept getting burnt in behind constantly, which does happen anyway. But I was just wondering whether you did anything different.
Do you change your tactics when you build a draft?
Well, I changed the tactics to something that I'd normally play outside a draft. Right?
Yes, yeah. Look, I rarely do, and then when I come up against somebody who's very good and has done, and I suffer because of it, I'm like, I really should change tactics every time, and then I just don't again.
Yeah, it is a pain though, isn't it? It's like having to, especially if you go, I don't know, like get unlucky in the first round, face someone really good or with a much better team, and then you go out and then you're like, I just set up my tactics for like 15 minutes of play. But I feel like it used to remember them to some extent. Am I making that up?
It did in certain formations, yeah. I think if you went back in and picked the same formation again, it would remember the tactics you had the last time around.
Yeah.
I suppose the biggest tip I would have, and one of the reasons why I started like Draft to Glory many, many years ago, is because I wanted to see how successful you could be at draft no matter what. And even if you lose in the first round and get a silver players pack, just wait until those silvers are worth 2, 3, 4K, and you're going to absolutely bank massively. Like it's a really, really good mode to play with really cool players, try different formations, and make coins along the way every time.
Yep. And actually, 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦 is in the silver packs, isn't he? So
he is indeed, yeah.
I guess just moving on to talking about draft generally, it's obvious that it's like way behind in terms of the rewards. And also, I mean, it's only occurred to me playing during Team of the Season. Obviously, my team's really good, but the squads I was drafting are like so much worse than my main team.
basically 3 years ago and prior, whenever a promo came out, you'd be able to get those players thick and fast in draft. Like, Serie A team of the season came out, you could probably get 6 or 7 of them in the draft. From about 2 years ago, I don't know. Well, I do know why, because they don't want people to have infinite easy access to them. But about 2 years ago, they started putting the promo that you're on in draft consistently about 2 promos later. Like, you would still get you'd get some Team of the Year cards during Team of the Year and beyond, but you'd start getting them really often 2 promos down the line. And that's why drafts are now behind the power curve of people's regular teams, because you're now getting like loads of Centurions and loads of like road to the finals instead of loads of team of the seasons.
Okay, I see that. That kind of makes sense, but I guess means that it's unlikely to be added, even if it would be a good thing to be able to try out recent players in there. But I'm sure there are plenty of other improvements we could come up with. And if you did have a FUT Draft magic wand you could wave and whatever you wanted was added to FUT Draft, probably within reason. Apart from the obvious one, like players having their positions changed to the right position when you put them in, and also improved rewards because they're well out of date. Like, what would you like to see added?
I think those are the 2 main things, even though they might be like the most obvious things.
Yeah.
You can start getting into like the whole, if you win a draft, you get to pick a player from the draft, but then that would just be like crazy overpowered. But having like rewards changed, either like the way champs rewards are or the way rivals rewards are, where you can pick from different options and tradable versus untradeable and things like that could be pretty cool. Just having more outside of draft to do with draft. Like, obviously we've got the draft mode. What's it called? It's called Draft Drive now, which is real cool for somebody who just plays draft constantly. It's real cool. But actually, if you only really play draft, or if you have an account that's dedicated to draft, getting packs and rewards for things that have nothing to do with draft is just pointless. Because if you have, let's say you get the 8 Serie A players pack for playing 4 games and you hit a big Serie A team of the season, but all you do is play draft, what do you care about that untradeable card, right? So having something to work towards in milestones throughout the year that's constantly repeatable and like scales up, either as the power curve scales up, can be timed, or just in general, like win 20, then win 50, win 100, win 1,000, like that sort of stuff. Like getting people to play draft, and then maybe having like captain's choice as like let's say for an example here, and I haven't thought this through, so I'm sure there's some holes in this. This just popped into my mind now, but let's say for example, there's a milestone, and at the end of every 10 or 25 or 50 wins in draft, you get a player pick within that milestone, and that player is just a good player from the game, or it might even be like a custom player or something or whatever, and you pick that player, and you can't use it in regular Ultimate Team. It just goes into your draft captain's bank. And so now every time you start a draft, your captains is from that bank of player. Now like you're at least going to get one player, or your captain is going to be like an exclusive player. And then imagine like the end game captains for like 1,000 draft wins or 5,000 draft wins is like 99 rated players. So when you come up against somebody that's got like a 99 rated captain, you're going to be like, oh my God, A, they're sad, needs to touch grass, but B, they've grinded the living hell out of draft. You've actually been rewarded for it on the field in some way.
Yeah, maybe some kind of chemistry boost for them, maybe even for other players as well.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool?
Actually, I was thinking it'd be great to see some sort of pink slip system for draft. I've thought for a while where you can take a player from your opponent you've just beaten.
Yeah, that'd be really cool, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Give you a better chance once you get to the final against that opponent who's just got a ridiculous team. Josh, anything from you?
Maybe not quite as in-depth as that. It's quite a simplistic one, but the ability to choose the nationality and league of my manager.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing worse than finishing like a Prem French League hybrid and then being presented with 5 La Liga 2 managers. Yeah. And you're kind of like, well, that's not really going to help me, is it? It's like, you should be able to go, okay, give me, or even just give me the 5 major leagues. Just give me one manager for each of the 5 major leagues. Like, who's like dying for chemistry for a player outside of that? Like, if you want to use that player, you'll be using that player whether on 0 chemistry or 1. So, yeah, for me, it's just like, it's a mode that just hasn't been touched in like 3 years. So I think there's optimizations for it. I really like it as a game mode, and I would like to see more from an objective standpoint, both to, as Nep said, to kind of like make the gaming experience within draft better, but also to make it worthwhile playing for people who don't usually go and play it. It shouldn't be, oh, here, we'll just gift you a draft token and you can do it through this in order to get people to go and play it. There should be a reason for people to go and play it because it is a fun game mode. It's, it's one of those ones where I like the idea of maybe protecting players. When you go into a game, you protect 3 of your players, but your opponent can pick 1 player to put in their team and you can pick 1 player to put in your team. There's so much you can do with a draft game mode. Even you do like head-to-head drafts where you pick alternating, but you get this choice of 5 players, and if it's your turn first, you get to pick the first player, and then they have to pick from the remaining 4. And you do it like that, alternating, but then they get to pick first and you have to pick second. And it becomes then like a tactic of who can build the best team from the players that you're given. I just think there's so many like creative ways you could make that a mode for people to want to play, but if you build a team and then you're playing 4 full games with it, that's like an hour that you can't be spending in the store. So
yeah, that is honestly, that alternate pick thing is something that for a while I've felt is really the future of FIFA, or I guess EAFC eSports, because people, yes, they'll watch gameplay, but what is unique about FUT, which you won't find elsewhere, is that kind of drafting or team building, basically.
Yeah. Ben, I feel like I'm a broken record with that sort of thing. It's like you have to give the commentary team more things to talk about.
Yeah.
And like at current, part of the problem is it's like, oh, they're lining up in a 3-4-2-1 or whatever. They're all using the exact same players. Like, I wonder what's going to happen. And there's no like, it's just not that interesting. And if it was switched around, so there's like only one version of Kylian Mbappe running around, or you could just like ban out Kylian Mbappe altogether because he's broken. Like, it just gets way more interesting. There's like strategies involved that are based more than just like, I don't know, I suppose like what your in-game tactic is. And I'm not saying the in-game tactic isn't important. I think it gets more important if you like can't have all of your perfect player items, because that means you have to be ready to use multiple tactics at any time based on your player pool. It's like what makes a good manager, right? You play to the player's like abilities or whatever. And I don't know. They're just and I'm hoping, let's say, I'll say reluctantly optimistic that there'll be some like more sweeping changes with the switch to EAFC.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm also very much feel like a realist there and think there's so many changes happening with EAFC in general. Some things are going to fall by the wayside until later years.
Yeah. And actually, just to go back a sec, because you didn't yourself speak about draft specifically, but any particular thoughts in terms of maybe some wild ways to change it or anything you'd like to see particularly?
I think for me, the issue with draft is when I do get a bad team, I'm just like, this is just like not that fun. Like, what's the point of it? So offering some way to like, even if it's after like every win, you get the opportunity to switch out a couple of your players. Like, it doesn't even have to be your opponent's player, right? Like, you just get to go back in and like pick 2 players that you want to swap like per win. Then everybody's team gets better by the time you get to the finals. It just gets like more interesting that way. So I can't tell you how many drafts I've like suffered through when my team is doo-doo. And I think about every game, how it's just like, I have to try to win because I started this draft, but also I kind of just want to quit out because I don't want to play with this team at all.
Yeah. I've definitely had a couple of those like, oh, what a shame I lost. Like, this is great.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I think that's completely a huge issue. Like the uninspiring draft teams that you end up with sometimes just, are a pain.
Yeah, but if you can swap a couple players out and you slowly improve, then you're playing on hope. It's the same mechanic of why people open packs. You have like this hope or this belief that you could get a big name player and it'll change things for you. Like draft needs a similar mechanism for it to feel that way.
Oh, there is one more thing that if they added it to draft, I think would make people play the game more, which is when a player SBC is available, put that player SBC in draft so that you can test that player out in draft only for the time that the SBC is available. So once the SBC is gone, you can't ever play with that player again. So it's not going to stop people from doing it because, I'll just redraft until I get that player if I want to play with them.
Yeah, just make the SBC players available, your captains for draft. you want people to go in there, they'll go in there for that.
That's fair. Although I think would you have to remove chemistry styles from being random then, because you wouldn't necessarily get to test them properly? I don't know.
I like the variation. You shouldn't have an attacking chemistry style on a defender. That just is silly.
Down to that customization thing, doesn't it? And who says draft has to be just seeing 5 players and choosing one of them? Why not see 5 players, choose one of them, then see, I know they're going to do the position thing next time, but see the position you want to take for them, then have an option of what chem styles you want for them. And then why not like have an option of what skill moves and weak foot you can take, give 3 combinations. Maybe you get lucky and hit a 5-star, 5-star. Maybe you get unlucky and have a 3-3, a 3-2, and a 1-4, right? Like this level of customization in the draft, making all different players, all different kinds of way, like almost like towards that mystery ball style of thing, that would be a whole bunch of fun.
Yeah, it would. And do you know what isn't fun? Ending this podcast, but unfortunately we have to do it roundabout now. So Nep, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks very much.
Very useful to have you on for this draft chat. And I guess people want to catch you doing that sort of stuff, not just on YouTube, right? But people can catch it on stream.
Yeah, I stream on twitch.tv/Nepenthez.
Nep, you playing pro clubs this summer?
Hey, I've been playing, Last week we started pro clubs, and it was fun, wasn't it, Josh, for the first couple of days?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I am absolutely awful at that kind of mode, but it was a lot of fun.
Just on quickly on that topic, I find what's so interesting about pro clubs is there's like 0 rewards or like grindability at all. It's like a pure play the game for fun mode. And like oftentimes those have been my absolute like fondest times playing FIFA.
Yeah. Although I guess playing in a team, the social element of it can't be understated as well. I guess you can get some of that through co-op, and people should maybe give that a try as we come to a point in the cycle where rewards are less important. If you know someone who plays FUT, give it a go with them. But for now, that is where, as I said, we can wrap up this podcast. So JoshXLs, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Last thing before I go, we are definitely going to get an end of an era, Zlatan Ibrahimovic at some point. So if you fancy investing in something and you do have the coins, maybe some AC Milan players might be a good shout.
Tomori, Tonali, all of those players are due for some boost. That Benacer card is really quite good still.
Yeah.
If you haven't used him.
I got him as a red and he's really good.
I got him in the community. Yeah, I got him untradeable in the community upgrade.
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy kind of slaps.
Yeah, it meant I had this weird midfield in the cup though of Benacer, Tonali, and Barella. It's just a bit duplication glitchy. But anyway, thank you very much, James, for coming on.
Cheers, Ben.
It's been great. And thank you very much to all you listeners out there. If you're listening via YouTube, then do subscribe, drop a comment, and leave a like. It definitely helps. And if you're listening anywhere else, obviously you can subscribe as well. You can also become a supporter and get an extra episode of the FUT Weekly podcast into your podcast feed every single week. And that episode would be this week, the gameplay podcast, next week, the content podcast, and it alternates like that. If you would like that episode and you'd like to enter the 36,000 FIFA point giveaway going on the Patreon, you can do so by following the link in the description of this podcast, or you can search Support FUT Weekly. And a big thank you if you are already supporting to all those supporters out there and those icon patrons. Dave B, 𝘭𝘰, Coach Vass, DJ FIFA Player, Alan G, Alistair, Anthony R, Dominic P, Rob P, Jeff B, Stephen F, Tom B, Damon H, David S, Nick Jack M, Eric T, Neil P, Adam G, Dan W, Waterman, N Hagman, Harry A, Jake G, Roger D, Springford, Alec, Bracco, Nishant, Harry P, Alex M, Lee A, Brendan W, Andrew C, Joe W, Timothy J, Dylan, J. Kell, Ibis24, Adam R, Sam K, Graham W, Andy, Ads H2K, and Brian V. Plus a special thanks to Luke M, Dave B, 𝘭𝘰, Tom M, Darren W, and Pato Foot for advice and production assistance. Before I leave you, just one more thing to add, though. FIFA's a bit like life, really. It has its many ups and its many downs. If you're having a few more downs than ups in real life in these more difficult times, then please don't feel that you're alone or need to struggle on without taking action. If you go to thecalmzone.net, there's loads of resources, advice, support, or even just a friendly chat for anyone who needs it. If it sounds like it could help you, then head over to thecalmzone.net. And for now, have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next podcast.